Charlie Redner. Welcome to the Right Now Show.
And I'm Judy Saxon. And this is a program where we put the emphasis on writers, writing, and the arts. And Charlie, I am so excited to talk with our guest today.
I know you are.
And he's a friend of yours.
Well, if you knew me, you wouldn't be so excited. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
But Charlie, I know he's a friend of yours.
Yes, been a friend for a long time. You know, I'm Philly bred and born, and when I bleed, it's green, and you'll know why. It's Eagles green. And I lived and worked in a section called the Old City, Philadelphia. Old City, Philadelphia is where all the revolutionary guys met. I even went to where they used to have lunch at the restaurant there in town. And there was a building that has the shape of Ben Franklin's old printing plant. And Benny said a lot of interesting things. But one of the things I liked the best that he said, write about something that's interesting or do something worth writing about. And our guest today did both. He's the first person to ever become a Philadelphia Eagle at the age of 30, when most guys are hanging up their cleats. And even that includes, I think, kickers, which is usually they last a little longer.
Well, we don't count kickers.
He wrote about it, and then the next thing you know, there's a movie, and it's called Invincible. Let's introduce the Invincible guest, Vince Papale. Hi, buddy.
Great to be here with you, buddy. Charlie and Judy, thank you so much. I'm talking to you here from Jupiter, Florida, my second home. So just sort of riding out the wave down here.
A beautiful place. I just finished your book, Vince. I loved it. Your life story written by you with Chad Millman.
Right.
And I just saw your movie. Wow. Based on Invincible, based on your life story. Mark Wahlberg plays you. And you reach for the Kleenex with that story. It's uplifting. It's a feel-good movie. I loved it.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah, it's meant to be. It's sort of like a chapter, Judy and Charlie knows it because he was around when all this is happening. Oh, by the way, ironically, Charlie, I have a house in Queen Village at 2nd and Bainbridge. So
gotcha.
Right around the corner from Old City. So I know exactly the bar that you're talking about and the tavern.
The old tavern, yes.
Yeah, it's a great spot, but. Yeah, Judy, I mean, this has been absolutely incredible. It's almost 14 years now since the movie came out.
Wow.
It's been a huge success for Walt Disney, but for me, actually, it's really been it's a life changer. It's a game changer because what I did back when I did it in '76, I really didn't think it was all that much. I just was taking a shot at the dream. I was trying to close a chapter of my athletic life. I was 30 years old. I was trying to actually, Judy, to get into the Olympic decathlon trials. I couldn't get in, and out of frustration, I wound up playing semi-pro football, which eventually, ironically, led to the NFL. So I guess it just, as they say, if it wasn't meant to be. But if, the door closes, just open up the other one.
The door opens. And tell us about that tryout, unprecedented, that Dick Vermeil had. He was a new coach with the Eagles, and he had this, anybody could try out, and you were there.
Well, Dick actually had he was following the path of one of his mentors who did it with the Washington NFL team, the Redskins, at the time, and they had already had a free agent tryout. And they brought this one guy in. His name was he was a running back, and he had played college football before, but he was about 25, 26 years old. So anyway, Dick decided in '76 that he was going to shake the troops up a little bit, and he had this free agent tryout. And I was just coming out of what they didn't say in the movie, and that's where the book picked up. As you put up the copy of that book, I have one right out there in the other room. But if you put the copy of the book, that tells the story about I came out at 28 from teaching school, and I got a shot in the World Football League, which was a new league where a lot of guys from the NFL were defecting to it. And so at 28, I was just coming off. I was in great shape from being a decathlete, and took a run at it. And there were about 1,000 guys at that tryout, and they had about 6 or 7 tryouts, and eventually just myself and another guy, Dennis Lozzi from Notre Dame, survived all the camps. Well, the league folded, so now I'm going to go back, and I become a substitute school teacher, and I also was substitute bartending or part-time bartending. I went back to my alma mater, and I was ready to get my teaching job back, where I was originally teaching for 6 years prior to all this. And then Coach Ramil comes flying into town, and Jim Murray, the general manager, was a Villanova guy. Chow, you know Jim Murray.
Yeah, I know Jim very well. Yeah.
Yeah, so Jimmy. Oh, and Joey Giardello was our linesman. He was the guy that used to. He was part of the chain gang for the start.
Thank you for saying that. It's a chance to thank you for writing the intro to my book about Joey Giardello, middleweight champ of the world, called Down But Never Out, which was the story of his life. And you met him when he was on a chain gang, you said?
Well, I met him before that, actually, just around town, but I met him on a chain gang, and he just became instant friends. I mean, he was right out of Central Casting, as we know.
Wasn't he, though?
And he always said, he said, life is the old Vinny, the old Vinny. He says, life's always about bobbing and weaving. You got to bob and weave, right?
Now, what is a chain gang? What does that mean? I mean, I know what a chain gang is, but what is it?
Well, it's not a derogatory term in Philadelphia. What it is or in football, they're 10 yards to a first down. So the guys that were holding the chains, and each one of the chains connected to these long poles with a little circle, like with a target on top, that's called the chain gang.
And they move
yeah. Go ahead, Sal.
Every time they make a first down, yes.
Oh. So every time they do or don't make a first down, so they're.
So Joey was volunteering to be on the chain gang for a play that you were involved in. You were on the team.
Well, yeah. Well, he was there for the entire length of the league, but the league only lasted a season and 5 games afterwards, and then that's where it all happened for me with Dick Vermeil and the Philadelphia Eagles. Jimmy Murray knew of me, and there was this guy by the name of Lou Riccelli, who was a good buddy of mine, and he became sort of like an agent. And he mentioned my name to Jim Murray, and he says, "Oh, we're having this tryout. I'll put him on the list, right?" So if you go to Wikipedia, Wikipedia will say that I was invited to the tryout. I guess you could say that, but Coach Ramil had no idea who I was when I came on that field, and I came out there, and the tryout was actually at the old municipal field, Charlie, the JFK Stadium, where they had all the concerts.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And the motorcycle thrill show, that was right there. Right now, it's the arena for the 76ers and the Flyers at that particular property. But anyway, Coach had the free agent. He had the tryout. He had no idea who I was. And when the tryout here, this is a funny story, because Judy, I was a season ticket holder. The opportunity to go into the locker room, and I walked into the locker room, and I'm looking at the internet connection is unstable. You guys got me okay? So yes. I'm looking around all the names in the locker room, like with Howard Carmichael and
Jaworski.
And Jaworski, but no, Jaws wasn't there yet. It was Bill Berge and John Bunning and Billy Bradley, and oh my God, some of the greatest players ever in the Eagles history. And then there was a door that was toward the end, and I walked out that door, and I went to the showers, and there's another door, and here it was a Phillies locker room.
Oh.
And so I'm just roaming around, and then as I come back and I find my way back into the Eagles locker room, everybody's gone. And I didn't know how to get out of the stadium. I couldn't figure out all the ramps because it was a subterranean floor, and the floor was about 2 or 3 stories down. By the time I actually was sprinting across past the Spectrum, you can appreciate this, Charlie, right in Patterson Avenue. I'm sprinting past the Spectrum. I'm in my cleats now, and I got my jersey on. They gave me a number 83, and then I run in, and everybody's already stretching, and Coach Ramil just looks at me and he says, 83. He didn't know my name. He says, 83. He says, "You're a little late. What's the problem?" And I said, "I had equipment problems, Coach." So I figured, what a way for the guy to notice who I am, right? And then out of nowhere, I hear this voice in the background. It's Vincey, you can do it, Vincey. And here was my dad, my father.
Oh, my goodness.
In a 100,000 seat stadium. He was all the way up in the corner on the right-hand side, and he was one of the only spectators there, and he took this afternoon off. We're working at Westinghouse, which is right by the river. He worked at Westinghouse, and he was there for that tryout. And then, that was it. My heart was lifted.
Oh,
and
yes.
At the end of the tryout, Coach, I actually in the movie they have him sort of busting me out of the car. And, he says, "You're a little faster than that car of yours." But that conversation actually happened in the elevator. I finally found out how to get in the elevator, and he came in and he knew my name, and that was the key. And he says, says you popped a 4.5 out there. And if you convert that, if you put a 4.5 on grass, it's about a 4.35.
That's a 40-yard dash, right?
Yeah, 40-yard dash. Very good.
Yeah.
So, and then he goes and he starts to drill me a little bit. He said, well, where'd you play your college football? I said, oh my God. I said, I didn't play college football. So I said Temple, you know, and I'm a St. Joe's guy, so you can appreciate this, y'all.
I do appreciate
rivals, right? So I said Temple, and then he says, how old are you? And I was 30, and I said, I'm 26, you know. And he said, well, what have you been doing in between that? What have you been doing in the time being? I said, playing semi-pro football and training for the decathlon. And that was it. And then 15 minutes later, Otho Davis comes to me and he says, hey, they want to see you up in the executive office. Go see Jimmy Murray. I said, whoa. And now I found my way to the elevator, up to the fourth floor. When I walked in there and I saw the murals of Tommy McDonald, Chuck Bednarik, Norm Van Brocklin, Timmy Brown, all the guys were from that championship team. And then they go to Mr. Murray's office. I walked past Coach Vermeil's, and there he is, and he smiled. He says, hey, that was great workout today, Vince. He said, you really popped a good one. And next thing you know, I'm there sitting next to Jimmy Murray, and he's offering me $21,000 to play in the NFL.
Wow.
So I had 2 season tickets, right? I had 2 season tickets. And I said, well, I have to give up your season tickets. He says, well, I hold on to them. He says, you haven't made the team yet. He said, well, hold on to them. And so that actually in the movie they didn't put that in the movie, which would have been a really cool scene.
Yeah.
But and so in the movie they make you believe that I had like 4 or 5 days after I signed that contract to go to training camp. In reality, this was all happening around April or May, and the training camp started July 3rd. The training camp in 1976, and it was a bicentennial celebration. And as this was all going on, Coach had no idea. I don't think he realized when he came to Philadelphia that we were the birthplace of the United States. Deal. Yeah. So at any rate, so I signed a contract, and so then he says. So then Jimmy says, he says, now because you have your property, the Philadelphia Eagles, he said you have the rights to use the stadium to train. So that next day, I was there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I started training with Denny Franks, and we trained together. And then Gus Hoffling, who was a strength and conditioning coach for the Phillies and the Eagles, and he was a kung fu guy, and he trained Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt, and a bunch of great guys. And he took me under his wing and got me ready for camp and killed me for about 3.5 months. And as they say, the rest is history, and training camp, and wound up making the team.
And tell us about that. When Dick Vermeil told you that you were going to be an Eagle, that was so touching out on the field, wasn't it?
In real life. That's good research there. Yeah, the real life. In the movie they created a scene, and they had to create it because Rudy, the movie Rudy, even though I had done what Rudy did, I did it many years before that. But in the movie Rudy, there was a similar instance where he found out he was accepted into Notre Dame, and he made a call to his father, and then there was a bunch of hullabaloo, and a big celebration with him getting accepted to Notre Dame. This had nothing to do with the football. This was Notre Dame acceptance. So they called that a Rudy moment. So in reality, now training camp is over, 6 preseason games. I think I'm going to make the team. I led the team in receptions. I led the team in touchdown receptions as well. And, just an undrafted guy. And so I think I made the team. And when I get into the locker room, I see my name, and my name is spelled correctly. And it's in plastic, and there's a uniform there, and it's got 83, and the helmet's nice and clean. And I'm thinking, it took my breath away, right? But I'm still not. They haven't told me I'm on the team yet. And I count, and there's Charlie Smith, and there's Larry Marshall, and Hal Carmichael, of course, Hall of Famer Hal Carmichael, and Don Zimmerman from Mississippi was the incumbent receiver that I was trying to beat out. And I figured, all right, well, I'm going because Zim's here. And so anyway, the Turk, he's the guy who cuts people. He comes across the locker room, and he looks right at me, and he starts smiling. And I thought I'm going to get cut. So I took the playbook that I had, and I just wanted to hand it to him. He just started laughing. And he pointed over to Don Zimmerman, and he says, Coach wants to see you. Bring your playbook. Now that's that is the ultimate. I mean, that's the chopping block right there. That's
that's scary.
Yeah, when they say bring your playbook, that's all she wrote. So, I'm like, I can't be an idiot, and I'm like coming apart at the seams, and I think I made the team. I want to call my dad. I can't. I have to collect number to get into Westinghouse to get to the shop steward. So we get out, and now we're warming up. And for practice, we're playing the Dallas Cowboys the next week, and we're in the right hand. The stadium's set up for baseball, and we're in right field. And I'm looking up in the stands, and I'm thinking, there's my season tickets up there.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if the guys could only see me now, this is so cool.
Yeah.
And anyway, coach walks over to me with a really sheepish look on his face, and he says, "Hey, Papale," he says, "congratulations, old man." He says, "You're a Philadelphia Eagle. Welcome to the team." And that's how I found out that I made the team. Wow. So I jumped up and I was out of my mind, right? And I said, "Coach, can you do me a favor?" Because he knew my dad eventually, because my dad came to every practice, because practice was at Widener, which was only a couple miles from Westinghouse. Right. So he was there, and Dick eventually got to know my dad. I said, "Can you please let me know? My dad right now is having a heart attack, and I let him know that I've made this team." So, and I knew there was a pay phone in the Philadelphia Eagles dugout. So I went to the pay phone, made a collect call to Slim Kaufman, and he's the shop steward. And I said, "Hey, collect call from this." So, oh my God. So you hear Slim. And I said, I said, "Slim, tell Kingy his little boy's a Philadelphia Eagle." And they used that line in the movie. And then you could hear in the background, "Kingy, we did it, right? We did it." And then you could hear the whole plant erupt. It was just they were going crazy. And then as they showed that great scene in the movie, we all had the big party at Max's, which is still there in Prospect Park. It's called Tumble In. Little Prospect Park, Delaware County, right outside of Philly, right by the airport, and there it is. So that's the long story of the Rudy moment being transpired, and where they created the scene where I visit the coaches and I go to push the playbook to him, and he says, "You might want to hold on to that." Yeah. They did a great job in doing that. So
apparently they listened to you too. You had some comments and suggestions, and they listened a little bit to how you thought it should. How many times were you on the set, and who were you hanging out with while they were shooting?
Well, I was hanging out mostly with the producers, Mark Ciardi and Gordon Gray at that time. They're the same guys that did Miracle and Rookie, and also the new guy. And eventually they did Secretariat and Game Plan with The Rock. So they had quite a pedigree. So I hung with those guys. But Janet was there. Gabby and Vinny were there. My Gabby now she's 26 and does all the entertainment for the Sixers. My son Vinny actually he's heading out to Seattle tomorrow to start training with the quarterback for the Montreal Alouettes, Vernon Davis, and he signed with the Alouettes. So but they were just kids then. Gabby was 9, Vinny was 6.
And they were they had a cameo.
They had the best cameo ever. They were that's the beautiful scene after the Cowboys game, and it's called the what the heck did they call the reflection scene. Oh. Yeah, well, that was when Mark is going through driving through the streets of Philadelphia, sees the little kids playing football out in the playground. The girl that throws, the little girl in pigtails that throws the ball out in the street is my Gabriella, who just walked past me a few seconds ago. And and Vinny is the one with the long blonde hair, with the 83 pacing on his back, and he's one ran out in front of the car and did that. Yeah. And something similar happened to me like that prior to an Eagles game. We were doing a pregame. I had this pregame ritual with Denny Franks. And I saw a bunch of kids out playing football, and I saw a little kid with number 83, and I went out and them. And so I told them that story, and then the writer Brad Gann, who just did a phenomenal job writing the movie, along with and great credit to Ken Mock. Ken Mock's out there in L.A. Mark is still out there in L.A. and they're still doing movies, and I just owe so much to them for believing in me, and Brad Gann for doing just such a magnificent job of writing the original script, which we tweaked a little bit, but it
was wonderful.
Right.
And you had a cameo. Was it in the scene when they were playing in the mud wow, what a scene.
Well, it was. Well, I was always there when they were playing in the mud. It was really interesting how they set up the mud scenes, but it was actually the scene where we were in training camp, and I caught the pass on this guy. And then I ran 70 yards downfield, and the guy started making fun of me. And Coach Ramil said, "Hey, that old man just blistered you," or something like that. and right before that play, I was clapping. I was clapping myself on, and that was my 2 seconds of fame. And Janet, my wife Janet, is portrayed as a Giants fan.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, but that
Yeah.
was just made. That isn't in real life. I mean, they changed her because she's a world-class gymnast, and they had her.
Yes.
Yeah. As a
Well, that
bartender.
was an interesting scenario, because we really needed the NFL's endorsement so we could use the branding rights and get the intellectual property rights. And as you know, especially with authors and stuff like that, you'd be so very, 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 very careful of all the copyright infringement. So we needed that. So once we decided on the script, Disney had agreed to do it. We went to the NFL, and at the beginning, they turned it down. We've already got our NFL story. It's Jerry Maguire. I mean, they actually said that. We've already got Jerry Maguire.
Oh.
So, and then I think it was just, so they just kept at him and told him, and then they showed him the script, and they really liked the script, and they knew my story, and being just up the road from Philadelphia. So they acquiesced. They said, "We want a couple of things changed." And they took it. There was a scene where there was a pool that was at the bar where I was bartending that I wouldn't try out, and then I wouldn't make the team. And they took that out. And the other thing was there was a scene with regard to guys not getting a lot of water. So they made sure that everybody got water. But they said, but we want Vince's love interest to be a Giants fan and a bartender. They needed what they wanted. They wanted conflict and humor.
Yes.
And it played very well. In reality, my wife Janet was on that world team that competed in Munich, although she didn't compete in those games because of an injury. But that same team the next year competed in Ljubljana, Yugoslavia, which isn't around anymore. And she wound up on that team. Eventually, she blew her knee out and started diving. Went to Penn State. Now all this world stuff is happening when she's a teenager. She goes to Penn State and started diving for Penn State and set all Penn State's diving records.
Oh my God!
And I'll just brag a little bit more. So anyway, she went and afterwards, she became at 21 years old the head coach at the University of Pennsylvania Gymnastics and started the program and stayed there for 13 years. And then got into the business world. So she's been doing real estate around, and that's where she's at right now. She's with her sister that she coached when she was at Penn. She's with her sister right now in this Jupiter area, showing them houses. So,
Penn and Penn State. What more could you ask for?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, it's just wild. So we're celebrating our 27th in a couple in a month. So life is good.
Oh well, now there was a term I didn't know. Well, a lot of terms I don't know. Special team. Now you were part of a special team. Explain to our viewers that may not know what that means, and it sounds like a tough job.
Well, they used to call them the suicide squads.
Yeah.
And
the bowling ball.
The bowling ball. My nickname was Samurai. And basically what the special teams are is, I'm looking out here, we're getting a beautiful Florida afternoon shower. But
wonderful.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. So anyway, what the special teams, there's the offense and there's the defense, and then there's what they call the special teams, which I have no idea why they call it that, because we weren't treated sometimes as special as we like to be treated. Or this will be a special treat for you, run downfield and you just collide head on with another guy that's coming head on to you. I mean, that's basically what it was. So the special teams, anytime, Judy, that the ball is kicked, that's basically the special teams, where it's a kickoff, a punt return, punt reception, whatever it might be, field goal, extra point, that's all special teams. So I was, I made the team my rookie year, and then second year was voted captain of the special team. So I guess I passed the audition with my teammates.
Oh, you did more than pass the audition. I imagine some of those guys, when you first got onto the team, said, gee whiz, there's some 28-year-old kid just fresh out of Penn State that could be taking this slot. Boy, what's this guy doing here, right?
Well, when they were, when I was with 30, the nickname, the things they would call me, and pops and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
They didn't see, they sort of underestimated me. I was just born 10 years too soon. I was a 22, I was a 22, I was a 30-year-old in a 22-year-old body. And it was because of my constant training with the decathlon. And I look, I had a work ethic that was beyond anyone. It would be nothing for me to do 40-yard dashes, or to do 20, 110-yard, 115, 20-yard sprints in a time that was pretty quick. You know, that some guys wish they could do once, and I would do it over a period of 15, 18, 20 times. And I'm not doing that to do that. It's just I had the gift. Somebody, God gave me the gift, and I had that gift, and I had the stamina. And a lot of guys in the training camp, actually, because the practices were like something they'd never seen before, because coach came in with that college attitude, they literally cut themselves. We had guys that would take their helmets off and just literally walk off the field and just say, "I've had enough." And that would be great for me. Or we'd be in line, for example, in the training camp, and there would be 16, 18 wide receivers at the training camp. And every time I get done doing one of my reps, I'd go back and I'd go to the second or third guy in line. I said, "Hey, you mind if I jump in?" And they'd be all bent over. So, but they didn't know, because I knew that that gives me that many more reps. So let's suppose there's only a total of 100 reps with all those receivers. Of those 100, I'm going to be seen 10 times on film. And every time, Judy, that I caught a pass, I would run 40, 50, 60 yards downfield, and the fans would go absolutely out of their minds, because they were local. The training camp was only just a couple miles from where I grew up, and all the kids that I coached at Interboro. I was at Interboro for 6 years.
Yeah.
How did you deal with some of the players? I mean, like calling you Pops, that's pretty demoralizing if you let it, I guess. Or
I guess so. You know, I mean, sticks and stones will break
bones.
they break your bones, names never, whatever. But you know, it never really bothered me. Actually, if anything, it was motivation.
Yes, that's see, that's a good way to Yeah,
it was a motivating factor, and they gave it to me pretty hard. But I knew, see, there was a core. And I didn't know this, but I had some really good intelligence, because the coach of our wide receivers' name was Dick Corey, and his son Timmy was just got his driver's license, and I had this really cool little Datsun 260 280Z with a T-top that I used to let him drive around campus, and in return, what he would do was he would sneak into the meetings that night, and he would listen in to see what they were saying about me. So I had my intelligence, so I knew every day going into practice from Timmy where I stood on the depth chart, and I also knew what I needed to work on. So you know that Charlie and Judy, you know that scene in the movie where I'm sort of in the locker room and the coaches come walking by and they say, you know, this guy's got to work on this.
Right, you're overhearing what they're saying.
Well, they created that little snippet of a scene for me telling them the story. This is Brad Gannon, how creative these guys are, and the scenes that eventually play later. And then that all came about because I had my snitch.
Well, you said something in the film. You were supposedly, I guess, talking to Dennis Franks, and you gave him some kind of a tip or something, and it was taken the wrong way. Am I reading that right?
Well, you know, he was because he said he was trying to get to see me get my butt busted, because and that's what they call the name of the drill was called the Nutcracker drill. And actually, you had just, you know, two guys line up head to head, and then you had the running back. And so I did that Nutcracker drill, and I was getting beaten up a little bit in the beginning, because what I did, these defensive backs, the guys would call me Pops and old man and all that stuff. When they came in and I was going to go head to head with one of them, I would tell them, I said, I don't want you to give me a linebacker. I said, you guys aren't tough enough for me. And I would say that, so that would really tick them off.
Oh my goodness.
And the linebacker would come in, and now I'm about 190 pounds after losing already 10 pounds in training camp, and I'm going against a guy that's 235, 240 that could bench press me 100 times. And it is what it is. So Dennis picked up something, and he says, you can read their knuckles, you know, and so if they're waist forward, you can see it. It's all their body language, and if the weight isn't
coming,
wearing gloves, no matter what their skin color is, you can see it just by their body language. And he taught me that little body language thing. And I now use that I use that when I finish up all my speeches. I call it analyze, adapt, and achieve. And the analyze part in any kind of a challenge you have in business or life, whatever it might be, is get to know everything you can about that obstacle or challenge, making sure you're not your own worst opponent. That's number
Right.
one. Number two is adapt. The adapt part is, well, what's your audible? You know, you're supposed to go left, but you see that you don't want to go left. You better go right. So in life, you have to have your pivots, and especially now, look at all the pivots that we're doing right now.
Yes.
With what we're doing with the Zoom, all right, and all the audibles that we're pulling, and the adjustments. And in football, they call them slight adjustments, audibles, pivots, whatever you want. And then the achieve part is get it done. You know, to just get to the finish line. Do we make the sale?
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, whatever goals or vision you have.
Well, then Rocky came into being, the Rocky movie, and you were called Philly's own Rocky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been pretty special.
Well, you know, it was very special, and I really I was just totally amazed by it, you know, because Rocky was and is still one of my favorite sports movies. Invincible sort of crept up a little bit, but I think it's number one. And I have to tell you, I had to put Miracle right up there with it, you know.
Yeah.
But let's say we're all in the top three, and Rudy's certainly in there, and also the Rookie. These, you know, they're genre movies, but I like the real ones, you know. And then so I had heard that Sylvester Stallone wasn't real pleased with the fact that I was the real Rocky, or I was, you know, real life Rocky. And then of all ironies of irony, when Creed is now the original Creed is being released and Sylvester Stallone is there, and I was chosen by Paramount. I think it was Paramount. They asked me if I would be the MC, the Master of Ceremonies, for their press conference, and we did it at the top of the Art Museum steps, right? And so now we're in the green room, and there's Michael Jordan, he's there, you know, and all the actors, and so now they're saying, okay, here's what this is that, and oh, by the way, here's our master of ceremony. Everybody knows who he is, Mr. Invincible, Vince Papale. And Stallone was on the other side of the room. He was signing posters. Is what you do when you do things like that. And he looks up at me, and he just looked. And he pointed and he said, "Is that you? Really? Is that you?" He didn't know that I was going to be the MC. And I laughed and I said, "Yeah, I get one of these." Yeah. And yo, how you doing?
How you doing?
So he says, and he comes like this. He says, "Come like that," and went over and he just gave me the biggest hug. He said, "Let me tell you something. I'm really proud of you." And that was it. And it was like I got goosebumps saying this story.
Just talking about it.
One of the coolest experiences of my life to have that, because I had thought that there was something that wasn't there. It's just you can't believe everything people say and read sometimes.
There was a scene.
Great story.
Vince,
like this, they take a picture with the rings.
in one of the Rockies, Stallone took the scene right out of Joey Giardello's life. There was a baseball team that had his name on the back, and as you know, Joey got into trouble and he ended up going to jail. And then the team takes the name off the back of the jerseys, although you can see the imprint. Well, Stallone did that in one of the Rocky movies with a baseball team, just like real life Joey Giardello story.
Well, a lot of the stuff, you know, some of the real life, that's what it was. And that's what really made Rocky, I think, pretty cool, because the running scenes, for example.
Along the river.
It's documented by Ray Didinger back in the day, for crying out. You know Ray Didinger, right?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, you know, Hall of Fame writer. So Ray Didinger documented when I was training. It was my workouts would start with a 2, 3, 4 mile run, and in the off season. One of Coach Vermeil, Judy, came to me and he says, "Hey," he said, "Hey, I understand you like to run a little bit." He said, I don't mind taking a jog once in a while." And I said, "Mind if I run with you?" I said, "Oh no, man, here we go." I said, so I figure I'm running around, you know, around the golf course right there on the streets of South Philly. I figure I'm going to. I said, "How far do you want to go?" I said, "Let's go 3." Now, normally I would have done 3 miles in less than 20 minutes. Yeah, like a 6-minute mile was nothing for me at that time. That was my warm-up. So well, I'm with coach, and I think, all right, I'm going to back it down a little bit, and I'm going to just go 8 or 9 miles. You know, for me, that's like a fast walk.
Oh.
Okay. And now it's a sprint. You know, but then coach, you know, when we get done, he starts picking up the pace a little bit, and then you know, I'll stay with him, and I'm talking the whole time. So finally, Joey, we're on Patterson Avenue. We're going right past the park, and you know where the old Navy hospital used to be, and all coming up. And we're about half a mile away from the stadium. You know, just coming up Patterson Avenue. And next thing you know, coach picks it up. Now he's going at about 7-minute-mile pace, and I'm right on his tail. And then I says, "There's a barn, coach." Now I had a decision to make.
Yeah, you got to beat him or not?
Yeah.
Should I blow him off or not? And I figured, well, I got nothing to lose. Boom. And I just took off. And a couple of minutes later, I'm just sort of standing there, you know, like this. And he says, "I would have been really disappointed if you didn't do that." He says, "I was sort of testing to see if you could do that."
Well, you were a winner either way. You know, but he wanted you to cross the finish line first.
No, it's so many interesting things. But the reluctance to if you got injured in a game, the newer players were hesitant to go get fixed up. You kind of played through pain, right?
We did. No pain, no gain. I have that T-shirt here somewhere, you know. Yeah. I mean, Coach had that saying, "Nobody ever drowned in sweat," you know, no pain, no gain. And we used to get those T-shirts. And my high school coach always used to say, "Spit on it and forget about it. If you were hurt, just play through it."
Oh.
So you always had to, and I talked to Gabriella and I talked to Vinny about this when they're feeling pain after, because they were both great athletes and still compete, still do things, that you have to be able to distinguish between pain and injury. So back then, but I knew, you might not be able to see this, but you can see that little lump up there, but that's a separated shoulder that was actually separated in training camp by one of the players, not to be mentioned. I was standing around. I thought the play was over. The whistle had blown, and he came and he grabbed me from behind and he threw me on the ground, and the point of my shoulder hit. So my whole rookie year, I played with a separated, an AC1, and I wouldn't, you know, I just tried to work through it just by doing. And then eventually the next year it became an AC2, and then I wound up having to get some stuff to help me get through the game. And then the third season, it was a full-blown torn, and I couldn't get it up any further than this. And then after the season was over, I had surgery and came back to first preseason game, and I re-separated it. A guy hit me from behind in the scapula, re-separated my shoulder.
Oh.
And I was having a good game, actually. I had 4 catches, and coach says, "You're out." And I said, "I got one more play, coach. I got to get even. I want this guy. I want to get him." He says, "Okay, it's your last play." And I got him. But what I did is I separated this. I dislocated this shoulder. So I had it dislocated right, and it's separated.
Oh,
you got him good, Vince. Congratulations.
Hey, that's what it is.
Your moment.
If you're gonna go down, you might as well go down in flames, right, Charlie?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it was all the way down.
Saw a clip with you and Mark. You're still in contact with Mark Wahlberg.
All the
Isn't
time.
that wonderful?
Yeah. Oh my God, he's the greatest guy in the world. I just love him to death. He was so true and so friendly. He's the nicest, gentlest, kindest guy I've ever met in Hollywood. You know, and he stands for what he believes in, and I respect him so much for that. And he treated our children with such tremendous respect and love. And still to this day, you know, there's contact with him. He just is so.
It's a shame, though, is that he's a New England fan. I mean, come on. You know? He should have been born in Philly.
There was a great jersey. There was a great jersey coming out in the Super Bowl that somebody. I had to send a picture if I can find it. And it was the front of it was Papale. It was the 83 in the front, and on the back it was Brady. Yeah, just right down the middle. Yeah. Well, this is you'll appreciate this story. So I'm with Gabby, Vinny, and Janet and me, and we're out there in Minnesota, and we're at the Mall of America waiting to take the train to go to the stadium, and we see a Wahlburgers. So I send a picture. We took a family picture of the wall. We take it in front of Wahlburgers, and I send it to Mark. I said, hey, man, if you're here, where are you? And I better see you wearing a Papale jersey, an Eagles jersey, not a Brady. So about a minute later, I get a FaceTime from him. Here he was in Bogota, Colombia.
Oh.
And he was shooting a movie, Mile 22. But that's Mark, right? And he got back, and then he says, hey, come on over here. I got the Papale family. I got Pally. And they all came over, and they were all cheering for the Eagles, and he was rooting for the. He's a great guy and a big family man, and I follow him on Instagram all the time, and we had some really really fun times together.
That's nice to hear.
Well, then after your time with the Eagles, you got into announcing with ESPN. Is that right? Or CBS? You were a sports announcer.
Yeah, well, and Kelly would know. In Philadelphia, yes, it was back then. It was a CBS affiliate. We called it
Channel 10.
Yeah. What happened was after my freshman year, I got contacted by the general manager of CBS Channel 10, and they asked me if I'd be interested in becoming their weekend sports anchor. And I had never done anything like that, and I was terrified to even speak in front of a camera, believe it or not. And so anyway, I did an audition, and they said, you're perfect. We're what you want. And Tommy Brookshire, Charlie, was the guy who was doing the weekends, and he wanted out. He wanted to retire, so I went on set with him a few times. He trained me. They taught me how to do a teleprompter, and next thing you know, 2 weeks later, here I am doing a weekend sports. And I did it through 2 seasons, and I got cut from the team my third year in the beginning. So immediately Channel 10 asked me to come back, and I started working with them. And then what they did is they fired the guy that was a regular sports guy, and they made me. I was working 7 days a week for 21 straight days. And the Eagles had asked me, they asked me to come back. They wanted me to come back on the team.
Yeah.
And so I tried to renegotiate another contract that didn't work, so I went back. And as they say, that was the decision I made. So I never did any more TV in Philadelphia, but I did radio for a long time. I was a pregame guy for the 76ers when they won the World Championship with Dr. J, and Billy Cunningham was the coach. And
great team, wonderul team.
That was the old. It was a WPEN, and we were country western. What the first country western station? Can you imagine that, a country western station doing a play-by-play for the 76ers?
No. But I saw a clip of you with doing announcing, and you're just terrific. Your enthusiasm for life and all just came right through with your doing the play-by-play, whatever. It was just great. You just have that great enthusiasm that carried. It was on the field. It was shown on the field, and everything you're doing. And so, but then I read that I think it was 2007. You got a call that wasn't pleasant. You cancer. You were told you had cancer.
Yeah. That's 19. Actually, it was 2001. It was
2001. Oh, okay.
And I just celebrated my 19th anniversary of being colon cancer free. And it was just that you talk about that being a wake up call. Janet, my wife, she says, you're 55. Maybe it's time we have a couple kids. I started family late. We had Gabby and Vinny, and so she says you might want to take this test. And the first one I took was they found a few polyps. Everything was fine, but there was one that was up here. And they couldn't get to it right then, and she would not let me leave the hospital. She says, I'm not leaving until you get that polyp out. And so they put me under again, and they got the polyp out, and that was the one. And but thank God it was encapsulated, and we sent it out, and the pathology reports came back from 7 different pathologists that the cancer never spread through the. It was almost like an M&M, imagine like. So the inside, the chocolate, the cancer never got through the coating, and so what they did is they did a resectioning, and it was really cool how they did it. They actually did one of the first laparoscopics, and they took 18 inches right through my navel. And,
I'm an expert in that area. I write for a magazine that's actually all about cancer and colon cancer and things. And matter of fact, that woman in Atlantic City that I want to introduce you to, she had colon cancer what a marvelous story she has to tell. You'll have to get in touch with her.
Oh yeah, well, I would love to. And now Charlie, I'm a spokesperson for colon rectal cancer awareness, and I always tell, I says, hey man, you better take that test. You never know what they'll find. And last time they found my father's shoe up there, so. I speak a lot, and I do that PSA all the time.
God bless you.
Just what you need to do in order to take care. That's one of the things you need to do.
And you do a lot of speaking. You do a lot of motivational speaking.
Well, I was, yeah. Now, now it's also.
Oh, right.
Yeah, here's the pivot. I mean, I had 7 events canceled this summer, and that's how I make a living. So that was a little bit of a chunk, but we've recovered pretty well, and it is what it is. But you got to do what you got to do. And now I do a lot of Zoom casts and have a PowerPoint presentation. So anybody out there, you find me at Papale.com. Oh, by the way, I'm going to be, before we go, you were talking about broadcasting, that my daughter Gabriella and I are going to be coming out with a podcast called Gabbing with Invincible.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty fun. So we have our executive producer coming here on Thursday, and we're going to set it up and start doing some teasers for it. But it'll be a lot of fun. Gabby, she works for the 76ers, and she knows a lot of athletes, and she's going to take the millennial point of view, and I'm going to take the old school point of view. And we think a pretty nice cast of characters will be coming up, from athletes to entertainers to Navy SEALs to entrepreneurs, whatever it might be. So,
is it going to be inspirational stories or?
Yeah, we want it to be inspirational stories.
Yeah.
Sure. We want it to be all about it. It's all about. That's what it's. Listen, the whole thing, Judy, this invincible thing. It's just. It's all about the dream, and it's all about people being told that it can't be done. It's.
Right.
People back then, you can't do it. You're 30 years old. It's never been done before. What are you, out of your mind? What makes you think you can do that? Just right. All I'm asking, the biggest thing is, we're not asking you to be the best. We're just asking you to do everything you can to be the best, and there's sometimes, and there's moments in life where it's worth just giving it everything you have. And at that point in my life, it was worth giving it everything I had. Quitting my job, whatever it took, I was going to give it my all. And if I didn't make it, I had nobody to blame but myself. Right there, I see that guy in the mirror. That's you. That one's on you. But a lot of it, and this is how I built my speeches. It's based on, a lot of times you have to get the opportunity. And Premio has a great saying about opportunity and preparation.
Yes.
And you don't know when opportunities are going to avail themselves. Right now, you don't know, especially with this new world that we have coming in with everything that's happening around the world. And you have to be prepared for it. And, mentally, you have to be psychologically, spiritually, physically prepared. And I got into a little slump a couple of weeks ago, and I wasn't working out. I went up to Philadelphia, got distracted by a lot of stuff. And then I came back down here, and I was real stiff. I was in pain. As soon as I get back into my routine and my regime of working out and sweating, all of a sudden it just.
I know. When I first hit, I just took off, and I don't have to go to the gym anymore. I don't have to do anything. My body fell apart. I didn't realize how bad it is. After 50 years of working out, you got to keep it up.
Well, yeah, you really have to do it. And, and I admire those. And there's so many great things. I watched Gabby and Vinny. Vinny was down here training. He was training with a whole bunch of NFL players with this guy named Tony Villani out of Boca Raton, which is about 20 miles south of here. And he was training with all those guys. And then when the COVID hit and then they couldn't go inside, they still found somewhere that they could go. They were actually running across bridges and doing whatever. That's the audible you had to do. And Gabriella every day working with all these virtual workouts that you can get that are really intense, man. I'm really telling you, they're intense as heck. And I finally just got these bands, and I just love it. Now I'm out. I can go outside. I hook it up against the wall, and I'm outside where it's 95 degrees. And to me, I see myself at training camp. And the more I sweat, the better I feel. It's just, it's like psycho.
Have you been out on the golf course since the virus hit? Have you been out on the golf course?
Oh yeah, we've had a few. We just had the honor of playing the championship course at PGA, the Honda Classic.
Oh my goodness.
Our friends, Doug Peterson's our friend, and they came. They were down here for the weekend around town, and we got a chance to play with them. And we just got accepted to a really cool little golf course in our neighborhood called Tequesta, which is in Jupiter. There's so many golf courses and so many great players. Tiger Woods is right as Ricky Fowler, Ernie Els. You can just go from there might be Dustin Johnson. There could be 20 guys on the PGA tour that live within 5 miles of here.
Oh my!
Yeah, great golf. But I'm not. Trust me, I'm like a miniature golfer compared to these guys.
Jaworski still have his charity up there?
He's got his charitable outing. It's coming back up in August. I'm going to be competing in one just next week, in 2 weeks. Actually, I'm going back to Philadelphia just for this. It's a cancer event. It's going to be in Pennsylvania's capital, Harrisburg.
I'll send you an email. I need to know about it. Yeah, I'd like to know the date. Jaws is really he's really taken off. He's got 5 golf courses now. Wow.
And he teamed up with Joe Flacco on one in Mount Laurel, New Jersey, which where I lived when I was a rookie, called Ramblewood. And Ron's done a tremendous job. And when he takes over a golf course, it's just a total takeover. He's done a great job. And but there's a guy. He's a great guy. He's not he's competing in golf anymore. But boy, is he fun? Nobody does more in the community than Ron Jaworski with his Jaws Youth Playbook. He's raised over $2 million for the United Way and the Youth Playbook in the greater Philadelphia area.
Well,
Judy, you ever think there's an opportunity to bring this to a close? I mean,
I was just going to talk about about the book Be Invincible that you wrote. Pardon?
Oh, I can't believe we've already gone an hour. I thought we were.
I know. Oh, wow.
Well, if we add for the opening close. Yeah, Be Invincible. Tell me about Be Invincible.
Well,
you got another book out with Dennis Franks too, don't you?
Yeah, we do. It's the Be Invincible book. Hey, Gabriella. Oh, she's on this headset. Hi, Gabby's out there. Yeah, Dennis Franks, with the Be Invincible book, the one that you just had there there, Solomon.
Yeah.
That was one that Janet and I wrote. The Be Invincible Playbook for Reaching Your Full Potential was it was self-published. We had 10,000 copies, and we sold 9,995. I have 5 copies left, and so we're going to revamp that one. But then I wrote a book with Dennis Franks called The Last Laugh, a playbook, The Last Laugh from Vision to Victory. So we created the Victor's Code, Vision to Victory, and we sort of tell our stories. He was too small, I was too old. We got into the NFL, and then we got some Hall of Famers like Muriel Hemingway, Pat Croce, and
Pat, yes,
Jim Harbaugh, people that you might know from any one of the worlds, and they tell their story through our Victor's Code and their entrepreneurial story, and that's you can find that on Amazon. It's called The Last Laugh from Vision to Victory, and then I'm in the process of working with my cousin. There is a seed in one side of my family that with a mental illness. And my mother, we mentioned it briefly in the movie about my mom being sick, but she suffered from anxiety and depression, and she had a couple of nervous breakdowns. And when I was a kid, if it weren't for teachers and coaches, I never would have, like Marty Stern, George Corner, and all my teachers. If I never had them in my life, I wouldn't be where I am right now.
Wow.
So we're going to we're going to write a book about just getting through that. I know there's a lot of people. It's something that's really near and dear to my heart, and it's that we let people know that and me, everyone, I sort of slipped a little bit, thought that maybe something's not ticking right, and so I went to the head mechanic and got everything right, and I met Janet, and it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
So it's okay, and it's okay. So we want to get that. So that's my next project, and Denny Frank's going to do another thing, and I'll be chasing Denny hopefully in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Gabby's whatever the kids' dreams are, I'm chasing. So,
Well, Vince, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with me today. It's great to see you.
What a great thrill to see you again, buddy. You're awesome. You know, when you call.
Well, so are you. So are you. Oh,
Yeah, it's absolute delight. So thank you so very, very much.
You're welcome.
thank you.
If you ever get stuck again, just give me a call, okay?
Oh, it's been
I
wonderful.
might do that. Thank you.
You're welcome. I will see you all. Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you. Thank you. Having Vince on our show, I was inspired by this quote. You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream, by C.S. Lewis. Isn't that a
That's a
great
good one, Judy. It's a good one to end on.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
I love that. Well, I'm Judy Saxon, and thanks for watching.
I'm Charlie Redner. See you next time. Take care.